son from West Virginia, but who knows? It is a locker room. We're going to talk about everything going on with the Texans. And I have 10 questions, 10 what ifs, 10 extreme what ifs, as well as the in-depth observations live from West Virginia. Subscribe, like, right along. And I actually have a guest. I don't usually do guests in the locker room, but Cody Stoots is riding along with me here, the other half of SNL, and he is going to join me right now. Much to the dismay of him, I feel like Cody might want to pass out right now. Cody's been on quite a journey today. I feel like Cody wants to go to sleep.
If I wanted to go to sleep, I'd take my ass to bed. I want to be in the locker room.
But among the journeys that we've been through today, tonight, all that, Cody Stoots presents the Brier Patch Cafe. This was earlier today. This was probably like a couple hours ago. Cody, I feel like you can set the scene here of this, but
so everything
to the Brier Patch. Look at that. That was actually well done.
Everything in Lewisburg, West Virginia, where we're staying to cover the Texans, everything closes at 9:00. Like the only thing that stays,
everything closes on Monday and Tuesday.
The stuff's closed on Monday and Tuesdays, and stuff closes at 9:00. So we'd had a beverage or two at this beer garden that's here in Lewisburg. We're a little hungry. I'm trying to find some places, and it's like, what do you go to this place, this place? And you and I both don't love going into places if they're about to close. So finding a place that was open past 9:00, it was like, it's sure tough. So I was looking around. I found the Brier Patch, and I was like, you want to try this? And you're like, I'm trusting you. Let's go. So we roll over there. When we pull up, it's the
motel.
Bar.
It's like an outside motel.
It's
like
the bar inside a motel.
It's 90% of the motels you see on Cops, which we watched the other day. It's 90% of the bars that you in motels that you see on Cops.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, well, here we go. And you walk into the motel, and I'm like, where's the restaurant? Lay's like, it's around the corner. And then I saw the door, and I was like, I got some hope here. When I saw the door. And then we walked into that wonderful joint, and it was everything we wanted it to be.
Well, they also said the grill was closed. They only had fried stuff.
Right. Yeah, we were like, okay, that's fine. And then we got to looking at the menu, and we're like, yeah, we could make a meal out of this, get some chicken wings and, some fried cheese and this and that. And we were able to make it happen. But the Brier Patch did a good job. They did a real good job. Good vibes. The music in there, vintage Kid Rock. It was fantastic.
A lot of Kid Rock fans there.
I'm pretty sure.
Don't know who they voted for, but I feel like there was a lot of Kid Rock support. Not sure where they politically lean, but there was a lot of Kid Rock present and past tense fans in that mode.
They went through most of the Devil Without a Cause catalog and then started rolling into the
Alabama.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. They went through some of the best of Kid Rock in that place. And yeah, we had a couple of really tasty treats while we were in there.
So going through camp, I feel like as someone who kind of creates, not kind of, but we react to what happens at practice. And I think we both do a good job of in-depth. For the sake of repetitiveness, what today's episode is number one, we're out and about in West Virginia. So we're kind of showing you that. And by the way, those cheese sticks, you should go check out the Twitter and Instagram of mine. Like, cheese sticks went in, man. Like they kind of did their thing on the front. The cheese sticks went in, but I have like 10 thoughts that could be really good or really bad for the Texans that I want to kind of touch on. But we will touch on the practice. But I think going in depth in practice twice, it kind of got a little bit repetitive when we were out here, where like they're watching SNL and then they're watching ours. So I just kind of want to, I'm going to focus on the main things that happen in practice. And then I want to give like the 10 thoughts that I have. And I think the number one thing that happened in practice today, and this is where my attention was both Christian Harris and Dameon Pierce were in uniform. And it wasn't like a distant memory. I know you've made fun of me and I've chugged apple cider vinegar, but the side of Christian Harris in a Texans uniform, and I'll get into this with the questions and the thoughts. He looks like an absolute scary mofo coming off the bus, to where I think even you today, as like someone who's kind of like, I don't want to say cynical, but you've been kind of pushing back. Like, you had to have looked over to that guy and said, damn, how does he fit into this thing?
He does look even different than playoff intercept the pass against the Cleveland Browns, Christian Harris. Like, he looks physically
way bigger,
physically more impressive than that player who, if you remember in 2023, that Buccaneers game, like probably about the second quarter, the switch flipped. And Christian Harris was a really good football player from basically that moment on, including the playoff games. And he looks like a physically more impressive human being than that player. And you start to kind of think about it. You're like, well, that seems like a pretty good player you could add to the equation.
Yeah, and then you see the way he's moving, you see the way the defense already is. And I asked D'Amico about, like, how do you fit him in? And he said it's not much of a challenge. It's a challenge. Like, I know D'Amico kind of goes a little bit hardo every once in a while. Like, it's not a challenge as far as his physical skill set, but like the way that they play defense with Petrie compared to like traditional linebacker, compared to what they like about Henry To'oTo'o, it might be a fun challenge, but it's definitely a challenge for D'Amico Ryans to figure out, like, if and trust me, we'll get in depth in this. This is one of the first questions I'm going to have with the 10 questions of doom, but it's definitely a challenge for D'Amico Ryans to figure out if Christian Harris is good, and even 2023 Christian Harris. It's a challenge to figure out how the hell you mix him in.
And I would say it's a challenge because you actually have valid options in Christian Harris's absence. Like, Henry To'oTo'o played well last year. EJ Speed is an option right now. They seem to really like Jake Hansen. Like, there's options. If a bunch of guys next to Azeez Al-Shire didn't play very well, we'd be dying to have Christian Harris back.
Yeah, for sure. T on the super chat says, if CJ doesn't improve in camp, do we worry, or is he the new scheme / lots of new faces a reason he needs time? We'll get into that. I promise you that. Like, I'm going to cover all ground on these questions, so I think to a certain point we'll get there. But appreciate you on the chat, T. Next one, and I got to ask Mark Vandermeer this permission. I didn't ask him today. God dang it!
Oh boy.
No, I'm serious. I'm asking permission for Mark Vandermeer. Is it okay? I think Nick Chubb had perhaps his best day, but I don't know if that's fair to say, because Mark Vandermeer is apparently like the head of the it's too early, too late. Like, have we reached the time yet? I'm going to ask him tomorrow. This will be the first thing I'm going to ask Vandy. Hey, I said Nick Chubb had his best day yesterday. Is it okay for me to say that? I think he did, but I will say this. His long run, Cody could have gotten at least 11 yards on it. Like, I think the long run, because it was on CJ, but it was to the right side and it was perfectly blocked. And I actually thought the play design was as good as the actual run, but it looked good for Chubb because it was the longest run he had. But it was the best that he looked. And by the way, pass protection for Nick Chubb, really elite when you actually get a close look at it.
It's the best rush play that the team has had in training camp, and it's certainly the best play Nick Chubb has had in training camp. But it was that way because it was a perfectly executed and designed play, not because Nick Chubb did anything special. I actually feel like Woody Marks might have had a chance to turn that into a touchdown,
or
Chubb
JJ Taylor,
or JJ Taylor,
Jawar Jordan,
or Jawar Jordan,
or Dameon Pierce,
or Dameon Pierce, or British Brooks.
Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe not.
I felt like it was like a Nick Caley play as much as it was a Chubb. But the reason I say Chubb had his best day is because I got to watch him in pass pro, and I kind of rolled my eyes at D'Amico. But because the fields are so close, he's good at pass pro. He knocked Woody Marks on his ass, literally.
Yeah, he literally blocked
him to the ground.
Into the air. And Woody Marks, like, it would look like a cartoon. He like flew into the air. Like they should have had a sound effect with it, like whoop. He like flew into the air. And then Chubb, I know that he had the big run. He had a couple of other nice runs where he just put his head down, used some power.
Too early to say that he had his best day, though. I don't know the rules. I don't know the rules.
I think it's appropriately timed to say.
Okay, I don't know the rules. I'm gonna ask Vandy tomorrow. Like I really gotta ask Vandy. He's the rule book carrier, so I got to figure that out.
Put a pin in this till tomorrow.
But I think, but me, like, I don't play by the rules, but I think that he had his best day, and I think the pass pro was as much as anything. The run, like, it got a lot of attention, but I think that was as much of a play design as anything. So
correct.
That's the next thought as we go through it. Next thing, couple scuffles at practice today. You had a two-piece combo. You had a Cade Stover and CJ Gardner-Johnson mix-up. I know you had both of them in the fight draft. That was impressive. I feel like I should have got Yeast, but it was after the fact. But I did tell people, I said, Yeast is going to fight. That's a direct quote. You can go back. I said, Yeast is going to fight in camp. I promise you he's going to fight. And we also mentioned Dalton Schultz. And Dalton Schultz and Yeast had the best mix-up where Schultz threw the ball at his legs and then tackled him, and Yeast kind of went like it was. There were a couple two-piece combos within team period 2 and 3 between those four guys.
The CJ Gardner-Johnson one was weird because it's almost like he expected that to happen.
I almost feel like they just had to do it for the G code. Like, I don't feel like they were really trying to fight each other. Like, I feel like they just almost.
I'm not backing down. You're not backing down.
Obligation.
Like, yeah, because CJ Gardner-Johnson tackled Stover, and then when Stover's on the ground, he tried to basically grab his jersey and help him up, but it didn't look like he was helping him up. And then Stover didn't love that, and they had some words. And if nobody'd come over there, they might have thrown some punches. They ultimately didn't. It was just very close. And then the Yeast and Dalton Schultz, I mean, that was great. I mean, Dalton gives him the old double leg takedown, and they go. And the offense and defense are all over there. And
I've said this, Yeast is a nasty mofo, man. He is a nasty, dirty mofo. He's hit guys in the face mask. He's gotten hit in the face mask. He's a nasty mofo. On a different football team in a different year, I feel like he would have a decent chance of making this squad. It's just not here, not going to happen. Maybe he hangs around, but he is a fun football player to watch. It's just it's too crowded here.
Yeah, you're not getting by with a first down celebration or a little bit of extra on his watch. He's going to let you know.
No, he's mean as hell.
Yeah, he's going to let you know.
He's mean as hell. He's kind of like old school Bill Snyder. I don't think he played for Bill Snyder.
Bill Snyder would have appreciated having a Russ Yeast on his team.
Oh, yeah. Russ Yeast and Bill Snyder would got along very well. And I'm sure he has a lot of respect for Bill Snyder, too, as a K-State guy. Davis Mills. I'm going to say it. He's having a really good camp. He had a couple of tosses today that were probably among the best throws that we've seen in camp. One of them was a rollout, which you rolled as a sack. I think there's the multi-evaluation that goes with this, where it was a perfect dime to Higgins. And Davis Mills had a couple of really good deep balls today. And I think I feel like he's gotten better under Nick Caley. I think it's very clear that Davis Mills has become a much better football player, and he's having a really good camp.
This is among the best I've ever seen him play, and he looks decisive, confident when he's throwing the ball. He's accurate, and I'm not saying there's a lot of teams, but I know there are some teams where Davis Mills could compete for a starting job right now. One of them's New Orleans. He could compete for a starting job with the Saints right now. But I mean, he's had a really good camp, and that's really good too for the Higginses and the Knowles that do end up with a lot of reps with Davis. Is if he's going to give them good looks, that inevitably is going to help their development, and he's been really good.
Yeah, he's been solid. I mean, it's kind of you almost feel like you have to apologize for saying it because CJ hasn't looked awesome.
I would like to see Davis play against the ones, and I'd like to see CJ play against the twos.
Yeah, let's mix that up a little bit.
Let's have a scrimmage Thursday. Let's have a blue and white scrimmage Thursday, and let's put Davis and against the ones on defense. Kind of let's put CJ against the twos on defense and see what happens.
I don't know why D'Amico doesn't do that. It's kind of it's almost kind of weird that that's not happening. And I'm just like I don't know. I don't really know what to make of it, but I feel like that should happen a little bit more. And I know that like that's always been like a popular topic, but I do feel like D'Amico, like the way he's practicing, it's almost like he's getting off to the defense, like beating up on the quarterback. And I think last year it almost felt like they were trying to make CJ look bad. Like it can't, when you go back and listen to some of the quotes and stuff, we're trying to confuse him. We're trying to do this. Like I think they got to reel it back a little bit.
Well, and they do it from time to
time. Am I
time.
wrong? Like it feels like damn, man.
It wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, even if it was just a slump buster versus the second team defense to have a great CJ day. Like that would not be a bad thing.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's one thing. It's one thing to take.
Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe it doesn't matter.
It's one thing to take Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter off the field and put Darrell Taylor and Dylan Horton in. It'd be a whole other thing to actually take the secondary off the field, take Aziz off the field, and let CJ go out there and just, hey, let's see what it looks like when everything goes the way it's supposed to go, and I don't have two of the 15 best pass rushers in football breathing down my neck every
Yeah, I feel like the point's been made. Like if you're trying to make a point or something, like I feel like the point's been made, and like the bottom line is I unless it's just going to be like taking the donut off the bat, like in baseball, where after you get done like lifting this heavy shit, like the next time you face a defense, like it looks awesome. It just seems like it's just kind of an ass whooping, man. Like it's we'll see. I mean, but we'll get into it a little later on. Speaking of which, Kamari Lassiter, 2 interceptions of CJ Stroud today. One of them going stride for stride with Nico Collins, the over the shoulder. Other one just kind of muscling it up, tipping it up. Boom, interception. Kamari Lassiter looks better than solid. I'm just starting to wonder, like, what if this guy is better than just a number 2 corner? Like, what if we start having like discuss? What if this guy just gets so good that we're sitting there saying, God forbid, who's the best corner on the Texans, Stingley or Lassiter? I know that sounds asinine. I know it sounds insane, but the way that this guy looks right now, he doesn't look like a solid CB2. He looks like a solid CB1A or 1B, whatever you will. So, like, he's looking really epic. He's one of the 4 best players in camp. I'll put it that way. He's one of the 4 best players in camp, and he's lining up with Nico Collins and just going toe-to-toe with him.
He was the best player on the football field today.
And there's been probably 2 or 3 days where you could make that case.
Yeah, and
that's with Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter and never missing a day.
We had this conversation a few weeks ago, and it was if Kamari Lassiter over the course of this year proves he's one of the 25 best cornerbacks in football, like he's a top 25 cornerback by the end of this year, you're looking at a extremely impressive cornerback duo, and it's already extremely impressive before we start figuring out where Lassiter ranks in all this. But if he continues to get better and he's even better than he was last year, they're going to be so hard to throw the ball against. So hard.
No, I mean, because the thing about him is that when you're opposite of Stingley, you're going to get challenged. And if he's going to possess these types of ball skills, then it's just going to create a lot of opportunities. And that's where you start to I don't want to say overrate, but if a guy ends up with 8 interceptions on a season because he's gotten challenged so much, then all of a sudden you start wondering, damn, where does this guy rank? And he's only in his second year. He looks absolutely insanely good in camp. And I don't think it's like a trick. I don't think it's like something that we're just watching in camp that doesn't correlate to the field, because we saw it last year and we're seeing it now. The dude looks freaking badass. Speaking of which, Tremont Smith, another cornerback, had a one-on-one with him today. He said that he had to sit down with Frank Ross in the punt, talking about punt returning, and we see him in the punt return line. I bring this up not to act like the Tremont Smith thing's a big deal, because I don't know if he's CB4, I don't know if he's CB5. D'Angelo Ross seems to be getting some reps. He was kind of CB4, but it feels like Braxton Berrios might be more on the outside looking in as opposed to the inside looking out when we first watched what was going on at camp. At least in my opinion.
From a roster construction standpoint, it would be better to have a depth special teamer who plays another position than just have Berrios as punt returner, kick returner, and then backup slot receiver. Just the composition of the roster would be better if somebody could handle those duties that's not Braxton Berrios. But if he does provide, that much more productivity than some of the other guys, you have to at least think about keeping him as that 7th wide receiver if he's that much better. But that's what you need to find out in a couple of preseason games and a couple of joint practices. How much better than everybody else is Berrios? And if he's only a little bit better, the overall roster construction probably benefits more from him not being on the team.
Yeah, and I'm still not familiar with Braxton Berrios's other half. I don't get it. I don't understand. I don't know, but people insist it's a thing. I am going to ignore it until it's actually something that comes across my radar, because I don't like the whole term influencer. I hate influencers. I think they're weasels. Anyway, Cam Robinson walking on the side. So yesterday you wondered how bad the injury would be. Cam Robinson, he was walking on the side. He had the sleeve. He had the hoodie on. Looks like they might have avoided disaster. We don't know how bad this is, but it doesn't look like anything that's some sort of season-ending type of joint with Cam Robinson. We'll get into what they did and what it looks like, but Cam Robinson looks like he's going to be okay.
Well, it's not a great spot to be depending on Cam Robinson to make sure your O-line's in a good situation. That's not a great spot to be in. I really would have liked, and it's only been, 2 practices without Cam Robinson because he got hurt at the beginning of yesterday's practice. It would have been nice if all of a sudden Cam Robinson's out, Ursery goes to left tackle, and you're just sitting there and you're like, whoa, hold on. Do they need to just go ahead and start Ursery at left tackle? But that's not been the feeling through 2 practices. And I understand it's Danielle Hunter, but even some of the other players in some of the situations, it's not been well, they just got to go with Ursery at left tackle and figure everything else out. That hadn't been the feeling that's been created watching him play left tackle these past couple days.
Yeah, and speaking of that, we now see Titus Howard getting right tackle reps. What are we to make of that? I know you had a pretty hot take, not really a hot take, a hot observation about Titus Howard when it comes to right tackle reps. I think we can agree that this says as much about Blake Fisher and his inability to earn the trust of the coaching staff. Because in a perfect world, this happens, Cam Robinson gets hurt. Ursary moves over to the left. It's not an ideal situation, but Blake Fisher just moves over to right tackle. But that's not necessarily the case. They're putting Titus Howard at right tackle, and Blake Fisher is second team right tackle. What's your biggest takeaway with Titus Howard getting the reps with Cam Robinson out?
I felt like Titus Howard actually had some of the best performances as an offensive lineman before he moved to right tackle, and that hadn't changed. He's one of the more consistent players on the offensive line. He handles Will Anderson better than anybody else on the team. I don't know if that's familiarity with Will because they've been on the same team for a couple of years now, or if he just matches up well with the styles and things like that. But he's done pretty well at right tackle. He's better at right tackle than Blake Fisher has been in training camp. And with Ursary, the necessity of him being over at left tackle, Howard makes good sense to be the right tackle for this team. It severely weakens the right guard's spot and the competition that they have there. But you've got to have the edges to be able to protect. You're going to face a lot of heat, especially that right tackle. You're going to get a lot of heat. Some of the best rushers in the world come off that edge. And if Howard's the best option that's not Ursary, they have to do that.
Well, that's kind of sad, though, because we know he's not a great right tackle. So, I think it says more to what they think of Fisher than it does like some sort of like revelation with Titus Howard. So
no, I mean Blake Fisher has ruined his opportunity.
He stinks. Like I'm not. He's not good. So and we'll see what happens. And I mean, if there's some sort of miraculous thing, that's fine. But you hear about he's only in the second year. I heard that about Kenyon Green, and I've heard that a couple times. But the bottom line is he stinks. You know what doesn't stink though? Bob Tech. 409-744-8225. Hit him up right now. He'll talk to you. Bobby, he's been doing it for 45 years. He's figuring stuff out. When it comes to the digital game, he knows what the deal is. Safety supplies, anything you need for your company, whether you're on the dock, whether you're trucking, PPE, spill control, all that. Bobby's been doing it for a long time. He's got the gloves, the FR, the coveralls, anything high tech, like anything from the top level to the bottom, even down to hydration, which is really important. He's got you covered. And it's 24/7. It's locally owned and operated. They got you covered, and they won't leave you out to dry. No AI, AI like customer service. They got you covered. And just give them a call, and they got you. They got you down, even at home. Anything. 409-744-8225. Shout out to Bob Tech.
If you need it, they can get it. Check the website. If you don't see what you need on the website, call them. They can find it.
All right, so the next part of this exercise, and this is really the big part why I have Stoots on. I don't want to we've gone in depth in practice on SNL with the big stuff that's happened, but I have 10 thoughts, and I'm kind of rotating from like the extreme good scenario to the extreme bad scenario, because let's just be honest, like what you say at the start of an NFL season, quite frankly, it changes frequently. Like what you anticipate does not always happen, and that's the beauty of the NFL. So I have 10 thoughts when it comes to the Texans, and I want to just bounce this off back and forth with Stoots coming off the trip downtown here in Lewisburg. So thought one is, what if you add Christian Harris to this defense? What if you add 2023 Christian Harris to this defense? Like, just think about it. What type of player Christian Harris is TBD. How long you're going to see it is the most polarizing topic of all. But what if Christian Harris is what he was in 2023 and you add him to this defense? I think there's a lot of layers of this conversation.
To me, it raises that ceiling even higher than it already is, and it's a really high ceiling right now for this team. You're talking about 2023 Christian Harris. That's a do-it-all linebacker. That's a guy that can cover. That's a guy that can rush. That's a guy that can fill holes along the line of scrimmage in the run game. And if you get that guy with an improved version of what Azeez was last year as your two linebackers, with everything else we've talked about, the secondary, the ends, enough at defensive tackle, I mean, it's already a really high ceiling, and it gets even higher.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of interesting with D'Amico. Like, how does he shuffle it? Like, how do you shuffle their love with Petrie, not playing as much traditional 4-3 defense? I think perhaps this impacts Henry To'oTo'o a lot, where Christian Harris probably takes a lot of those snaps because I think he's better than Henry To'oTo'o. I think Henry To'oTo'o is a good football player, but I don't think he's as good as 2023 Christian Harris, although he's a better player than he was in 2023. I just think this is a wild possibility. It's actually scary because an elite defense adds an elite talent.
Yeah, I mean, 2023 Christian Harris is better than 2024 Henry To'oTo'o. And To'oTo'o wasn't bad last year, but the 2020 version of Christian Harris was an excellent football player and was just growing into it. You could see the development over the course of that season, and he just kept showing more and more and more. Do I worry if that guy is still in there? Certainly. How do you get him on the field? Has that changed a little bit because they play defense a different way than they did in 2023? Yes. I also trust D'Amico Ryans to figure it out. The guy's
I feel like I watched that guy warm up today. I feel like I was watching that guy warm up today.
You watched 2023 Christian Harris warm up today?
Maybe even a better version. I mean, that dude was massive. That guy I was watching out there in that 48, that full uniform, he looked like a massive son of a gun. But maybe I was just lost in the sauce. Thought 2, what if the offense stinks? It's a conversation that a lot of people are having behind the scenes. A lot of fans are talking about it. We talk about how good the defense looks. Yeah, it's an elite defense, but what if this offense is just not good? What if this offense is kind of a version of what they were last year? What if this offense stinks?
It would be really disappointing. It'd be very disappointing. And the defense already is going to have a lot of, hey, they're a defensive-minded football team. The defense is really good. It has top 5 potential. That's already going to be the case. But the expectation with the changes that they made on offense, which were a couple of coaches and a lot of new faces, the expectation is to be a whole hell of a lot better than they were last year, where some of those early performances and a couple of blowout victories, they skew those overall stats. And the Texans are even, like, when you sort by team stats for the season, they're actually way worse than what you see in the sort, because they blew out New England and poured it on. The game against Tennessee at the end of the year didn't matter. And those things kind of boost up some of those stats. You drop those down. They were bottom 12 offense last year. And if they remain a bottom 12 offense after all those changes, that would be a devastating development for this organization.
Yeah, I mean, you say devastating development. I'll kind of elaborate on what a devastating development actually means. Like, for me, if the offense stinks, I still think they can win the division, and I still think they could potentially win a playoff game. Like, that's how good I think the defense is, and that's how well of an operation this is. And like, it's not going to hit rock bottom. But I do think if this does happen, I do think there needs to be like some sort of evaluation of Nick Caserio, and I think there would have to be some sort of evaluation with how they evaluate offensive linemen. Because I think if the offense stinks, it's going to be because of the offensive line, and if the offensive line stinks after you have this wholesale change, which Nick Caserio said it wasn't a wholesale change, it's been a wholesale change, then I think you got to figure that out. And the other thing is, how do you handle the eligibility of your quarterback being eligible for a contract extension? So I think there's a lot of fallback with if the offense stinks. And then I think we start to wonder, like, is D'Amico Ryans just too much of a defensive minded head coach? And how do you kind of combat that? Because Nick Caley's supposed to make this offense not stink. I mean, that's really what it is with all the decisions they made and everything that's happened.
This may not be connected, but it's not the craziest way to ask it ever. Is the reason Nick Caserio doesn't have a contract extension as the general manager yet based off of how this season goes on offense when he had to change the offensive line? His guy is the offensive coordinator.
I just really don't understand why all these guys deserve contract extensions before the final year. Like, it's just, I'm not trying to be like Mr. like man of the people. Hey, well, this is not my life, but like, why does Nick Caserio deserve a contract extension before he plays out the last year? Like, the guy's gotten a lot of leeway. He's gotten a lot of patience from the organization. The organization basically let him go through 2 years where they had no expectation of winning. And I'm not sitting there acting like it should have been realistic. He did that. They hired a coach. He literally said process over results for 2 years. And then he had the D'Amico thing. So I just don't get it when like you have like the John McClains. I love John McClain. You know that. That's my guy. That's my that's my dinner partner. But like this like bullshit where all of a sudden, like, oh, he's going in the last year of his $6 million a year contract, man, we better bring it up. Fuck that. Like, go out there and like prove something, and then we can figure some stuff out. So I don't understand why we act like Nick Caserio deserves a contract extension right now.
Well, aren't you sort of laying out the reason why he doesn't have one yet? Because he's got to prove it. He's got to prove that his offensive line plan that he put together, that, you know, his buddy who's now the OC, his buddy who's now the offensive line coach, like, isn't that part of proving it? It's like, hey, you vouched for this direction. Let's see if it works, and if it doesn't, see ya.
Here's the other bullshit that we don't talk about, and I'm actually gonna sit here and like just talk about this with Nick Caserio. Like, so Nick Caserio's on his first contract, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, who negotiated that contract?
Like who for like his agent with the organization?
Who negotiated Nick Caserio's contract?
His agent negotiated that contract with Jack Easterby.
Okay, and who is Jack Easterby's agent?
The same agent as Nick Caserio.
Okay, so his last contract got negotiated by a slimeball scumbag loser who had the same agent that he was negotiating with to bring Caserio in. So finish that contract out, and then we'll figure something out and play out the final year of that. Okay? Like that's something that was one of the most bullshit, unorganized, stupid things that this organization did back in the day. It's the past tense, but that was so stupid. So Jack Easterby, the POS, who's going to sit there, and he told me across the table, I said, what have you done for this organization? Like, what's the best thing you've done of all the stupid shit you've done? 100%. He told me, he goes, I brought Nick Caserio in. Yeah, you negotiated with both of y'all's agent, brother. Like, so like, I want to see Nick Caserio play out this final year of his contract. We'll see what happens. I'm not sitting here saying he doesn't get one, but I just really kind of roll my eyes when we keep hearing like, oh, he's got 1 year left on his contract, the coach. Okay, he's going to make $6 million. He hasn't gotten over that step, so he's not going to be a lame duck coach. Everybody in the world is a lame duck employee. So, like, let's let it play out, and let's also realize that this contract, this bullshit contract that Nick Caserio is functioning under, was negotiated by one of his old friends with the agent that they both had, period.
I'm totally fine with letting him play it out.
So there we go. Thought 3, as we move on here. What if Kamari Lassiter is elite? Like, what if we're talking about Kamari Lassiter is like a top 15 corner in the league after this season? And he's just, it's just kind of like LOB part 2. What if?
If he's elite, I'd be surprised if they don't have the best defense in football. If he's an elite player and Derek Stingley does what he does last year, then they should have the best defense in football. I mean, do you just throw the ball over the middle every time and just try to get Jalen Petrie in precarious positions and attack safeties the best you can? Because if Kamari's elite and you don't want to throw at Derek Stingley, where the hell are you throwing the football?
I think this is a very strong possibility. And I think, I mean, obviously I think they have one of the best CB duos in the league, but I don't want to get like 4 years ahead, but I think that this is a strong possibility, and it's actually a fun possibility to kind of think about when it comes to those guys.
I mean, it would be an incredible situation to have Kamari be one of the 20 best corners in football, much less one of the 15 best.
All right, thought 4, Dameon Pierce. This is short term. What if Dameon Pierce hits the field and he looks insanely good?
Then he costs someone their job. You can determine who that is based on how some of the other running backs perform, but someone who would be in right now would then be out. The two candidates would be Dare Ogunbowale and Nick Chubb. One of those two guys would lose their job if Pierce looked insanely good.
Yeah, and I think Marks might cost Dare his job. But as far as the I think the Mixon situation is something that we got to keep an eye on, like, because what does Joe Mixon look like when he comes back? Like, just there feels like there's almost like a acceptance that he's going to come back and look like he has for really the duration of his entire NFL career. But he's getting older. He's getting injuries. Like, I wonder what Joe. I wish that I could look at this running back room with the assumption that Joe Mixon's going to look like he has, but I just feel like that's a dangerous thing to kind of assume.
I'm not worried if Joe Mixon is healthy. I just have no way to confidently say Joe Mixon's going to be healthy over the course of the 2025 season. He's dealing with a foot injury now. Then he has to get into football shape. Then he has to go out there and play. And we saw how they used him last year. And I know it's a new offense, but he's the way they're going to be able to run the football. They're going to use him a lot again. And a healthy Joe Mixon, I have no worries. I just don't expect a healthy Joe Mixon this season.
Which brings me to thought 5. What if Mixon is done being Mixon?
They're in a really bad spot. I don't believe they can run the football consistently without last year's Joe Mixon.
So the Mixon dependency that we've spoken of is just kind of what if Mixon is done being Joe Mixon? And that's,
remember what it looked like when it was Cam Akers, Dare Ogunbowale, and whatever else they were running out there. That's what it might look like.
Which is troubling. But the defense, I mean, maybe they'll keep you in some games, but if Mixon is done being Mixon, then that's kind of a scary thought.
So that's a world that the Texans cannot afford to live in, frankly.
Thought 6. What if Caley is him? What if Caley is that dude? What if Nick Caley is a really good OC? And I think it's hard to, like, when you talk about the offense, he's not attacking this defense like he would a normal game. Like, he's not incorporating the quick game. He's not attacking it the way that he normally would. I think it's more indicative of, like, the actual personnel, which you kind of have to grade on a curve because you are facing that defense. But what if Nick Caley is him? The good news is your ceiling is up here. Like, you're talking like Super Bowl contender. The bad news is you're probably replacing your coordinator sooner rather than later.
That's a world I'm comfortable living in. If he turns out to be good enough that he's potentially gone after 1 year, I believe that would translate to tremendous success for the Houston Texans. I believe they could be playing in games that they've never played in before if he's good enough to be leaving after one season. I also wonder if he would treat it the way that Ben Johnson treated it, where I'm going to be very selective about my opportunities. I believe I can do this again. And if I have to do it again and then get another crack at everything, I'm going to do that. So there's a chance that exists, but I'm I'm totally fine living in a world where Nick Caley's good enough that he gets hired away, because I believe that translates very well for the Texans and the outcome of their season.
Yeah, and I mean his mentor Josh McDaniels knows very well, like, you got to pick the right opportunities. On the chat, Nomad Scott says, "Keep up the great work, fellas. Love the TC breakdown periods." Appreciate you, my friend.
Yeah, Scott's good people. Good people.
Appreciate you, mi amigo.
I will say too, selfishly, one little thing about if Caley was good enough to leave, I can dust off the offensive coordinator list from last year. Just change a couple names.
Thought number 7. What if Caley is worse than Bobby? What if Nick Caley is a worse OC than Bobby Slowick? What if it's a downgrade?
I didn't want to go here after what we just talked about.
We're going back and forth, brother. Like, that's what
I didn't want to go here.
Forth, brother. Hey, we're going back and forth, my friend. These are thoughts.
If he's worse than Bobby Slowick, they don't win the division, right?
I mean, it's close. Like, I think it would be still a battle. I mean, we would have to know, like, what is Liam Cohen? Tennessee's not going to really be a threat. Like, does Steichen get the most of Daniel Jones? I don't think this defense is going to allow you to be too bad.
They finished 2 games ahead a heavily injured Colts team last year. And Jones maybe makes them a tiny bit better at quarterback. So if they got health luck in Indianapolis and Jones is a little bit better, and Nick Caley somehow ended up as worse than Bobby, like, all of a sudden there's not much of a gap between you and the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, and I mean, like, really, if you look at the win total with Steichen and D'Amico, I don't know. I think the division will be a little bit better. I think the defense could perhaps elevate. That's a scary thought to even think about.
I mean, think about some of these teams the Texans are scheduled to play in 2025, where if it became apparent that Bobby Slowick was actually better at his job than Nick Caley is than Nick Caley is at his job, you're talking about some really impressive defenses that could just absolutely feast on your offense.
Yeah, it's not a favorable schedule.
Two in the first 5 weeks. Like, LA and Baltimore would have field days with the Texans offense if Nick Caley was worse than Bobby Slowick. Then you start thinking about, what could Tampa do with Todd Bowles? What could Jacksonville do with those edges that they have? Like, it gets really nasty really fast.
Yeah, and they might have actually favorable setup with the Rams and then the Bucs, with the Stafford situation and then the Tristan Wirfs, depending on what happens with that.
And Godwin's not going to be back by week 2 either. So
yeah, so they might have a favorable 1 and 2. Thought 8. What if Lassiter plays as well as Sting? And this is long term. Do we get to a situation where we're having like a CB1 argument like 4 years from now? This can be a quick conversation, but is the next what if Lassiter becomes like the chess move for Stingley?
If Kamari Lassiter plays as well as Derek Stingley, somebody is getting traded. You either trade Kamari Lassiter for a king's ransom before he gets paid, or you trade Derek Stingley on the back end of that contract, and
Dream
you get
scenario.
And you get a tremendous return for either one of those players if he can be as good as Derek Stingley.
Dream chess, bro. Dream chess.
Can you imagine the absolute bevy of draft picks you could get for one of the best corners in football right now?
I can. Thought 9. What if Stroud is a flip switcher? In other words, what if CJ Stroud is a guy who just has a feel for the moment, and he is one of those guys who is just one of the more clutch quarterbacks in the league? I think we know where this is going, and I think he's going to have this opportunity. Even if the offense isn't good, I think the defense is going to keep you in games. If Stroud is a flip switcher, then you're talking about AFC Championship, Super Bowl, all that. Same thing with what that Mahomes has done. Like Mahomes, there were times where the defense was carrying Mahomes, and they found different ways to win. If Stroud is a flip switcher and a clutch guy, then we're talking about the sky being the limit for the Texans.
Did you do flip switcher on purpose, or did you mean switch flipper?
Flip switcher.
A flip switcher.
Flip the switch, man.
You want to? Okay, I see what you're saying now. Okay, I got you.
Switch, yeah.
If he is a flip switcher, they play for an AFC.
Can they flip the switch? We've always said this.
Yeah,
Mr. They play for fucking English teacher.
Flip switcher sounds funny compared to switch flipper.
No. Flip the switch. You flip the switch.
Yeah, you flip the switch, but you're a switch flipper.
Oh my God.
Well, I'm sorry I like English and you don't. Here's this defense may be good enough that he may only need to have 2 awesome drives a game, and they could.
He might just have to be Rex Grossman, like or Joe Flacco, like Joe Flacco with the Ravens. Like that's the kind of the bar we're looking at when it comes to this. Eli Manning was absolute shit in regular seasons. Like the stats are terrible.
Like the thing is all these guys where you talk about like, oh, they took it to a different level. Sometimes they had like whole games of it in the playoffs. Like that Flacco run, I know that defense is really good. He was awesome the entire playoffs. And if CJ did something similar, not only would it be awesome for the Texans, it'd also be very profitable for him if that happened. I mean, we all believe he's going to get a pretty significant contract, but if he went on a sweet playoff run and just really turned it on back into the season, into the playoffs, you're talking about a very lucrative deal headed his way.
All right, final question. Not a fun one. What if the CJ Stroud decline continues and DeMeco has broken him? In other words, all this like struggle in practice, all this offensive line misevaluation. What if DeMeco Ryans has broken CJ Stroud and the decline continues?
Then they are in a long-term, very tough situation because the floor of this football team is going to be decided in large part by the defense. The ceiling is determined by how good CJ Stroud can be. And if he is Trevor Lawrence-esque, then okay, great. You can win the AFC South. You might win a playoff game, and that divisional round brick wall is about as strong as it can ever be for you. But where they can go in the high part of this thing is based on how good Stroud can be. So he's got to be much better.
Yeah, I think it's almost like BOB first 3 years. If you ask me, like you're talking 14, 15, 16, where OB never, they were in a situation where you had Fitzpatrick, you had Hoyer, and then you had Osweiler, and you were just kind of stuck. And it's almost worse if you pay the guy like Brock Purdy and he's not going to continue to get better, because in that situation, like they realized they needed to get out. I don't think CJ's bad enough to where you're going to try to get out, but I do think CJ's good enough to where you could get stuck like you do with Derek Carr and Trevor Lawrence. And I know that sounds like a real fun conversation for people to have, because after year one, you're talking about him being elite, but that's almost worse than being in quarterback hell, is committing to a quarterback like at an elite price who doesn't play at an elite level. So that's, I think in a perfect scenario, CJ turns into like a kind of a flip switcher and a guy who continues to get better. But in a bad situation, his bad is not bad enough to where you're going to punt on him. So that's almost like the scary thing that you don't even really have to get into. But there's been nothing that we've watched in the 11 days at camp. I don't want to speak for you, but at least me, where I say, damn, that guy looks elite. Like I'm just being honest with you. There's that has not happened. And last year had the decline. So you just kind of wonder what it looks like when real games happen. Maybe they put it together to where he's able to lean on the defense and Nick Caley becomes like a good play caller. But that's kind of a hellacious situation because it's not like Brock Osweiler, winning one playoff game and then like fake playoff game. And then knowing you have to get through it. He's potentially good enough to where you could be on like a weird treadmill, like a Dak Prescott type of treadmill.
He's not getting a penny. Like you compare it to those early O'Brien years. It was easy to get rid of Ryan Fitzpatrick. It was easy to move off of Brian Hoyer. Even Osweiler's contract is nothing compared to like CJ Stroud is not getting $1 less than Trevor Lawrence this offseason.
100%.
He's not getting
Brock Purdy.
He's not getting $1 less than those guys. So if he's got you on the mediocrity treadmill at a highly expensive contract, you're in a spot where your ceiling is very clear and very hard for you to bust through.
On the super chat, Mark asks, how many series should the first team offense get in preseason? I don't have like a certain number. I really don't care. I'd say like, a half at least.
I'd like to see them play a drive against Minnesota. And depending on how they feel coming out of that joint practice with the Panthers, how much they play against Carolina. If they go out there and kick the Panthers' teeth in on Thursday afternoon before a Saturday preseason game, here you go, Davis Mills. Have a first half, and we'll let Mertz and Slovis have the second half. But if you don't really love what you
might have the fans going nuts if he plays like he has in camp. I'll be honest with you. Like
I might be making some Davis Mills Vikings wagers.
Yeah, he's looking pretty good. I'll be honest with y'all. He's looking pretty damn good.
And I would say with all these things, results are gonna. If you go 3 and out, like you don't want to just be like, they're gonna play 2 drives and one of them's a 3 and out, and the other one you get 1 first down, you punt. Like that doesn't feel good. That's not what you want. But at the same time, you march down the field like they did last year against Pittsburgh in the opener. And okay, 1s, you're done. Get the 2s out there.
Yuppers. Those are the questions. Those are the layouts here on in the locker room.
I would play Ursery the first half of the first 2 preseason games, though. He's clearly going to play sooner rather than later in the regular season, so I'd get him a little bit more work against non-Daniil Hunter, Willie Anderson players.
There's a ball game Saturday. How about that? And there's a practice tomorrow, and there's a practice Thursday live from West Virginia. We'll be there. We got you covered. Appreciate y'all for rolling through. It's a locker room. Special guest, Cody Stoots, straight off of the downtown run. Although most downtown places in Lewisburg, believe it or not, are closed until Wednesday. They close their restaurants and their shopping places on Monday and Tuesday, which is crazy.
There was one place that's open on Monday and closed on Tuesday.
It's all over. It's crazy. Like I wanted to bar hop today. We didn't get to do it, but we did go to the hotel, and it was some of the best string cheese that we've ever had. Appreciate y'all for rolling through. Subscribe, like, ride along. Always remember, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together. Appreciate Cody Stoots for coming through. Shout out to Bob Tack for sponsoring this segment. We got you covered tomorrow, SNL, 4 o'clock. Bye-bye.